what the hell? I believe, when he sees the box and what's inside of it. And from there, they get a message that they need to come to the phone because it's Agent Cooper. Okay? So you're watching this, and you're like, oh my god, did Cooper somehow call them? Or what's going on? Doppel Cooper? What is up? And basically, they find out that Cooper is in South Dakota, and it's trouble. It's serious trouble. So they have to go to South Dakota and see Cooper. So it's going to be Gordon Cole, Tammy Preston, and Albert Rosenfield on a road trip. Well, not really a road trip. They're probably taking a plane there or whatever. But on a trip to South Dakota. And then we have some fun with Dale Cooper, who, again, everyone thinks is Dougie Jones, okay? And he becomes Mr. Jackpots. That's what the older woman calls him, who's trying to win at the slots and failing. And, yeah, Mr. Jackpots is the new name. I'm going to take another sip. Wonderful coffee. Okay. So, basically, what happens then is she asks him, please tell me which is the next one to win. And he just goes, again, like pointing, kind of like, because he's like not all there at all. Keep in mind, he was non-existent. So he's doing pretty well for being non-existent rather recently. So he just starts pointing at one of the machines, and she goes over there, and she wins, and she's really happy and everything. So, turns out he gets all this money, tons of money, and then he ends up home taking a, actually I believe he takes a limo that the casino pays for because he's such a high roller. He won so much money there, and they want him to be happy. Although they do think he might have stolen some of them. Not stolen, but he was doing something underhanded is what the head of the casino thinks is possible. Anyway, he comes home, and we find out that his wife, who's played by Naomi Watts, that he needed money to pay off gangsters. And basically, all the money that Cooper won will pay off Dougie's debts, so no one kills Cooper. So the Black Lodge was helping him to survive, basically. Even though he's outside of the lodge, it wants him back badly, or it at least doesn't want him dead. So I thought that was pretty amazing. There was also a scene earlier with Dougie and the prostitute. But again, keep in mind, it wasn't Dougie, it was Cooper. Again, that case of mistaken identity. And we see these two people gunning for him, literally. They're in cars waiting for him outside, and one of them has a gun ready to shoot. But luckily, Cooper goes into his pocket and finds his old Great Northern keychain with the number 315 on it, his room number, and he drops it, and he goes to pick it up as she's driving, so they don't see him, and he doesn't get killed. So we find out why that was, because of the money that was owed to the gangsters, and now that can be all taken and paid off. Okay, now we meet a new Sheriff Truman, which is interesting. Not Sheriff Harry Truman, Harry S. Truman, Harry Truman's brother. And it turns out, unfortunately, that the Sheriff Truman is sick. We don't know how or why, but he's sick. And we also find out some amazing news that Briggs, who's, floating head we saw earlier, he had supposedly died in a fire at his station. So like at his military installation or station, he died in a fire shortly after meeting Cooper. Did I mention the toxic puke? Yes, the Garmonbozia, the pain and sorrow. Yes, I did mention it. Yes, what's coming up, what Mr. Trioxin is getting at too, is we find out that 2 or 3 people that were exposed to it when they found the car crash with Doppelkoop, people got violently sick and had to be taken to the hospital. So, it is something very terrifying and awful about it. I'm guessing it's pure undistilled pain and sorrow, and that a human being isn't meant to be witness to it. So, one of the funniest moments in Twin Peaks has to be when we meet, finally, Andy and Lucy's son, Wally Brando. And he is basically, it's Michael Cera, and he's doing an impersonation of Marlon Brando from The Wild Ones. So he's got the black leather jacket, he's on a motorcycle. It actually says Wally on the jacket, just like the character in The Wild Ones had his name on his jacket. And he actually talks like a young Marlon Brando. And he's there to pay respects to his godfather, who is the sick Sheriff Truman. So he comes to talk to the new Sheriff Truman, played by Forrester. Oh my God, I forget his first name. Okay, well, I'm sorry about that. But this is an amazing, like, wow, 4 or 5 minute scene. And he's extremely pretentious. And he sounds like Brando. And it is just a great performance. It is absurd. I mean, I couldn't even imagine what Michael Cera said when David told him, you're going to be playing... It's my terrible David Lynch. You're going to be playing a young Marlon Brando from The Wild Ones. So, yeah, that's a great scene, and I think everyone's gonna love that once they see it. It's awesome. Then what happens then is a very important scene. Cooper, again, everyone thinks he's Dougie, is in his house with his wife and son, and he's supposed to be getting ready for work, and he has a vision of the one-armed man talking to him, and he says some very important things. This is actually pretty much a quote. You were tricked. Now one of you must die. So basically at this point, because of what either Bob did or someone else, the manufacturing whole fiasco thing, because of that, either Cooper has to die or Bob has to die. Doppelkoop. One of them now has to die. It's not as simple, I guess, as Bob coming back. I guess they went past that once they replaced Coop with the actual Dougie Jones. Just mentioned something about the marine layer in today's weather, and you're spot on with that Lynch impression. Well, thank you, Mr. Try. I appreciate that. Thank you. I screwed that up, actually. That was the guy for Bewitched I did. I don't know. See, because I was trying to do it. The other one I just lapsed into it, basically. So, more hijinks occur with Cooper, and he ends up taking his tie and putting it around his head because he doesn't know how to put one on at all. And he ends up taking a sip of coffee, and he spits it out almost immediately. Now, this is interesting, because he was basically born anew after being non-existent. Does this Cooper no longer like coffee, or was it too hot? Through his reaction, it's difficult to say exactly. Yeah, I think it's possible he just may no longer like coffee. Again, he was non-existent and then brought back. So, it's probably going to fuck with you, you know? Okay. And so then we have TP, Albert, and Cole. Yes, but his reaction, I'm wondering if he no longer likes coffee or if it was too hot. Because the reason he did that first was there's one thing was fish in the percolator in the original series, And then another time, I think it was really hot and he ends up spitting out coffee. So it could be one of those two things. It's possible he loved it. It's possible. I think so. I think that numerous things from his old life are going to trigger his memory and he's going to fully remember, hopefully. Hopefully soon, too. Because while it's funny, I could see it getting to be ridiculous if we go 5 or 6 episodes with, you know, Frank and Coop, you know, who who can't understand and relate, and it'd be a little bit much. So again, Albert, Chief Gordon Cole, and TP Tammy Preston head out to South Dakota. They meet Doppelkoop. It's a very interesting meeting. We find out that Albert authorized Philip Jeffries, played by David Bowie in Twin Peaks Fire Walk with Me, to give Cooper information, and that information was about a man in Colombia. That man was killed a week later. So the implication that Coop had something to do with that murder. Also, it's a very frightening meeting. We see someone that looks like Coop, but he's acting very bizarre, and he's repeating things very mechanically in a frightening manner because, you know, it's Bob in Coop. And it seems closer to the reveal of who killed Laura than it is when that person was just, you know, going about their day to day. Anything at the scene with the chalkboard and throwing rocks into bottles? Yes, that's an amazing scene. That's an amazing scene. Now, I believe that is episode... I want to say it's episode 3, isn't it? Because at the 2 is when Coop has the dream. And then I think it's because he can't remember the dream he does the thing with the bottles. Or maybe it's 2. It might be 2. I'm trying to remember. So, it's very unnerving. So when you're watching the episode, there's this scene of Coop giving the thumbs up, and it just kind of, because, you know, it's not him, and it's like the whole idea in the TV show Hannibal about someone wearing a human suit. Doppel Coop just seems off, very off. Luckily, Albert and Cole, and probably even Tammy, who never met him before, I don't think, as far as we know, seem to... I haven't finished the book, maybe she did. Seem to realize, too, that something is terribly off with Cooper. And this brings up the idea of the Blue Rose again. And the Blue Rose is first mentioned in Twin Peaks Fire Walk with Me, but in Twin Peaks, the TV series, Project Blue Book is... what Major Briggs is part of, having to do with, it was thought to be extraterrestrials, but it turns out to be, like, it was messages from, they thought initially deep space, but then turned out to be from the woods of Twin Peaks. So, very much it seems like it has to do with a White Lodge or Black Lodge. I think that was just had to do with him not knowing what the other Coop sounded like, or the audio setup they had, the weird audio setup.